So who do we have here,
Well,
John?
we got Mr. Rick Noriega, and I knew him as the executive director and president and CEO of AVANCE nationally. We've since learned that he was the fellow that ran against John Cornyn for Senate. So, but you're not in politics anymore.
No, not in politics anymore, but still in
Well,
politics.
if you're running a national nonprofit, you are in politics, right? Mr.
Well,
Noriega?
you know, Gandhi said that there's nothing that you can do in a democratic society that isn't influenced by politics.
Oh, there you go. So, where are you from?
I'm from Houston. It's my hometown. That's where I live and where my family resides.
Mm-hmm. Is that where you were born?
That's where I was born. Fourth generation. The great-grandson of a lady who came through on the bridge in Eagle Pass, Texas, in search of a better life for her and her son. Her son passes away. She raises her two grandchildren, and one of them happens to be.
So they were living in Houston.
They were living in Houston, and she invested her entire life to those two children. One of them went into the Army, post-World War II, returns, falls in love, raises a family. His three children wind up going on to college, and
then
the great-grandson of Ignacio Noriega has the privilege of running for the United States Senate.
Oh my gosh! So it was your grandmother then, right?
My great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Your grand and grandfather. Tell us a little bit about them.
Well,
did you even know them?
Yeah. Well, my grandfather, I did not. Mm-hmm. He died at a very early age in Houston. In those days, appendectomy, health care.
Oh, yeah.
He had a pain in his tummy, and it burst, and he passed away at an early age. My grandmother returned to San Antonio and began a new life for herself, and had another family. And so it was really, our great-grandmother, and of course we always kept very close ties with our family here in San Antonio as well.
Mm-hmm. So what about your mom and dad now? Give us a little background about them.
Well, they're in the twilight years, and myself, along with the others out there that are part of the baby boom generation, are in that sandwich generation where we're having to look after our parents, and we're also to make sure that our kids are going to have everything that they need. So, we're dealing with those things. I know a lot of folks, your listeners, Bjorn, deal with family issues with diabetes, healthcare issues, all those things, quality of life, and so it's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. What did your dad do?
My dad, when he returned from the Army, started going to night school at the University of Houston with dreams and hopes of becoming an electrical engineer. He didn't get to fact. He nor my mother were high school graduates, but yet both of them were part of that generation where they both worked. My mother eventually, though they were both non-high school graduates, became an executive secretary for General Electric, and my father became a buyer for a major turbine company in Houston. And so they provided an excellent life for their three children.
Were you the first?
I'm the middle son.
Okay, so there's three in the family?
There's three of us in the family, and I have a brother in Austin and a younger sister in Houston. And in fact, when we're done here, John, Bjorn, and Bobby, I'm heading back to Houston to celebrate my father's 83rd birthday.
Terrific.
And my brother's birthday, and so the whole family's getting together. My dad just had a process because of diabetes where he had his leg removed, and so we're working through the mental health issues of that at age 83, along with celebrating the time that we have together.
Right.
Now, what about were your grandparents around?
What got in the way of your dad not going into what he was thinking of doing?
I think a commitment to family. I mean, commitment to the three kids, and recognizing that he was going to forego that and put his investment in his three kids, putting his dreams aside for the future.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. But we moved on to your folks. But you indicated it was your grandfather that died of appendectomy.
Yeah.
But what about your other grandparents?
Well, on my mother's side, again, minimal education. Really grew from being sharecroppers and located to Houston from the Bryan College Station area during the Depression, looking for work. And, my grandfather, just really a hustler in terms of small business, doing whatever he could to survive. Eventually, opened up a restaurant and died at a young age. He smoked like a chimney, and then my grandmother as well on that side, on the Gonzalez side, lived a very full life, and so we, enjoyed as grandkids enjoyed some loving grandparents.
So, what's your earliest memory? When you think back, what do you remember?
Well, obviously, I hope, like a lot of folks, very fond memories of your grandparents. In the case of my grandmother on my dad's side, I recall us driving to the bus station and hiding in the back seat because Grandma Sophia was coming in from San Antonio, and of course, she was a very doting, spoiling kind of grandmother. And
your hiding was a surprise.
We were hiding as a surprise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were going to surprise her. And then on my mother's side, my grandfather, who was a very physically big man, he was missing a finger on one hand, probably not unlike a lot of men of that generation. But I remember riding in the back of the pickup truck going to the farmer's market to go buy produce, and going early in the morning with a big pan of breakfast tacos to feed and sell to the drivers who came in from the valley with their produce and their products. And then once we sold out, I was probably 4 years old or so, and once we sold all of the breakfast tacos out of the cab of the truck, then we would load up with produce, take it back to the restaurant.
So you would use the proceeds of the breakfast tacos to buy the produce?
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like commerce, huh?
Something like that.
Something like commerce.
An entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur. He was definitely an entrepreneur.
So in those early years, were they fun years? I got that sense that they're not bad years.
You're talking about the early 60s, yes. And you're talking about first memories, and jumping ahead to a life of public service, you have to say, okay, what were some of the key intervention points? And so I remember at age 5, our parents coming home from work, the both of them, and they rustled us up, the kids, my brother and myself at the time, to go to Broadway Street, Houston, after work. We quickly arrived on Broadway Street, not knowing, sitting on the curb, and lo and behold, in a few moments' time, a black limousine drives up from Hobby Airport with John and Jacqueline Kennedy in the back seat on their way to the Rice Hotel. It was, I guess, a day or so later that the assassination occurred.
2 days.
2 days later,
because it came to San Antonio the next day.
So we were kids sitting on the curb, witnessing all that. And so as a young, impressionable person that then got to see on TV, witnessing your teachers crying and your parents emotional, seeing all those things is very impressionable. And we were all of this, these giant ideas of going to the space, of going to the moon rather, of ask not what your country can do for you. I think all of those things had a huge impression on me.
So what was school like in grade school? What was grade school like for you?
Grade school, by and large, was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. had very good teachers. Had a third grade teacher. I'll go ahead and call her out right now. Ann Collum, who's still a very dear friend of mine, third grade teacher in Houston, retired. As was I better say Mrs. Jones too, because she's still alive too in Houston.
And might be listening. Huh?
And maybe listening. And so those. Separate your parents, who are your first teachers in the home as the first classroom. You do have those folks that really give you inspiration, that tell children you can do whatever it is you want to do if you put your mind to it, and so forth. And
were your parents both thinking ahead that education was going to be important for their kids?
Very much so, and it was never a question for them, and very involved in our activities. I can never recall a time that my mother didn't go to a parent-teacher visit at school, or that my father didn't attend my Little League games. And I think that collectively, folks recognize how critical that is in the success of kids. Now, all the research obviously supports that, but very, very much involved throughout our young years.
How much older was your brother?
5 years. And one of the things I do, just as a way of modeling, my parents did go back and get their GED just as a matter of
saying they did it, huh?
Saying they did it, and saying that they could do it. They were into their late 50s, and they went back to the community college as a couple just because it was important.
But you were older then.
We were already ourselves in college, and so forth.
But what an example! I mean, for others in the family, and for them,
absolutely,
to do that. So so now you're in grade school. You're having fun, and now, did you live in the same house during this whole time?
We lived in the same house until age 12.
Okay, so all right. Now it's time for the break.
Mr. Rick Noriega, he is the president and CEO of AVANCE, and it's a national corporation. And what does the company do?
AVANCE is a 40-year-old nonprofit organization that is a two-generation parent-child curriculum.
Bjorn and I can relate to nonprofit institutions. Go ahead.
I understand, but
I don't have a 501 designation.
The intellectual property of the organization.
We can't relate.
Is a parent-child, two-generation, evidence-based curriculum that originally started out reaching out to Latino families here in Texas, and specifically here in San Antonio, and in the projects here in San Antonio. And so it's extremely successful, and now we have a footprint in 7 states. One of our most successful branches with Ms. Becky Cervantes is here in San Antonio. You may be familiar, they work in the Harlandale ISD and Carmen Cortez Center, really impacting families and parents. And the whole premise is 0 to 3 is the critical intervention point when you make a difference in a child, when they are the brain development, research-based, all the brain development is occurring during 0 to 3. And most critically, the involvement of the parent, as I shared with you as an example with my parents' involvement in my life, and then it winds up continuing throughout the life cycle. So doing a lot of different things in public service. It's interesting that I've been led to this particular opportunity and challenge that I believe for us as a community, as a state, as a nation, is the critical intervention point to be continue to be globally competitive, and actually is a national security issue about who are the folks that are going to wind up serving this nation if we're continuing down this road of educational failure and of large trends of population growth in certain communities that have a higher propensity to fail. Are we going to spend a lot of money on the back end whether it's in prisons or remedial training with companies or with all these anti-dropout programs, which National Economist says you spend 7 or 8 times more during those years because you're dealing with the collateral effects of not having made the intervention with the parent and child in the 0 to 3 years. That is the most critical intervention point.
But I'm going to bring you back on why you never ended up jail. No.
Well, I'll tell you what.
We got you.
A lot of coaches and teachers and parents and it wasn't that we weren't traviesosos, as they say in Spanish. Which means young boys and doing young boy things. But
Bobby's sitting here shaking his head.
Grinning. Bobby knows exactly what I'm talking.
I sure do.
Mischievous, I guess, would be more traviesoso than mischievous. But at any rate, the having those support systems and your neighbors and others that see you when you're trying to stand up on a fire plug and turn a street sign or something, and one of your neighbors hollers at you from next door and says, "Hey, get down off there! I'm going to tell your."
Well, now, because your older brother was 5 years ahead of you, you and he were not in the same middle school or high school at the same time.
We weren't, but I benefited greatly because, because he was the trailblazer in a lot of different venues. For instance, in the area of sports, I benefited because I got to play with the bigger kids, and so playing with the bigger kids, improved your skill sets when you got into athletics. He and my mother negotiating the school system as the first kid, I probably was the net benefactor then of her then having so all of these, and then the hand-me-down clothes, all those things. I was a benefactor of just a lot of things of having an older brother.
In a school that was really truly multiracial?
No. In fact, I can tell you, and gosh, I don't know can I do this, say their names?
Sure.
Why not?
I remember by the 3rd grade, in my class, there were probably 3 Latino kids, myself, Manuel Martinez, and a girl named Delia.
My goodness.
And I'll tell you, it was about that time that, and this isn't a genetic or inherent thing that's in kids. It is a learned thing with kids that somehow societally teaches people about othering people, whether you're short, you're fat, you're bald, you're this, you're that. You're Hispanic, you're black, you're a woman, you're whatever the case is, and so it wasn't until
those others,
yeah, and so that concept of others is it hit me in the face when I was in the 3rd grade, in a predominantly working middle class neighborhood school, and my mother made the conscious decision when they bought their first home they were not going to live in the traditional Hispanic barrio in Houston and move just a little outside of that area to get into a better school system, et cetera, et cetera. And so it was the 3rd grade that I had that first awakening in a very direct sense.
So when you got to middle school and high school, what happened?
Fortunately, I was a product of, by the time I was in the 7th grade, a kid that got bused. We were by that time in another neighborhood, and we got bused to a different school, and it was the first time that I actually attended school with African American kids. So all that was a big education from a cultural standpoint, an understanding standpoint that, was great for my lifelong education. And then later, my parents were at the point that they wanted to make sure that we were going to have a good opportunity to go to college, and so we were able to go to Catholic school at that point in Houston. So I went to Catholic high school.
Were you heavily involved in extracurricular activities?
I was.
And did you work outside at all?
We were always encouraged to work at home. I mean, from the time that my mother expected us when we came home from school, whose ever turn it was to do the dishes, whoever turn it was to sweep the kitchen, et cetera, that my brother and I had those chores that we were expected to do before we could go outside and play football or baseball and so forth. And so from the time I think I was probably 12, I had my first job washing dishes in a Chinese restaurant on Telephone Road in Houston, Texas.
Boy, that sounds exciting.
Yes. Okay.
Well, for $1 an hour,
Yeah.
and with the hot mustard coming off the plates and filling your whole head full of hot mustard, it was an incredible experience. But moving from there to being, John, you'll appreciate an entrepreneur, mowing yards for about the next 3 years, having my customers, and I'd charge anywhere from $3 to $7 a yard up till the time I was about 15, and then worked in a very small mom and pop grocery store on Telephone Road called Forbes Grocery, and I was placed in the produce department, and there was one man who was a produce manager, and he would leave me a list of things to do when I came in from school. And so, of course, being very looking, he was the produce manager, small mom and pop grocery store. Therefore, I was the assistant produce manager.
So now you had a title.
16 years old.
That's right. Assistant produce manager. And so that was a great experience. And then from there, by that summer, I had my first experience with some friends of mine whose dads owned a construction company that they would allow us to work construction jobs at age 16 out at the chemical plants in the years 1973, 1974. Worked the summers out on the chemical, And what that does for you is it makes you realize, I do not want to do this.
Yes.
We have heard that before, haven't we, Bjorn?
You bet. Now, so you're getting ready to graduate. You told us earlier that college, yes, it's going to happen. So what direction were you looking at going?
Interesting. My parents always were encouraging, and we knew we were going to go. But as first generation, for us college goers, my parents didn't understand all the nuances of taking your SATs and sending your application here and sending your applications there, and what the whole field of possibilities were for you. I was playing baseball at the time. I wanted to play baseball, so I did probably what a lot of kids that are first generation college goers do. I went to a school where my best friend was, just so I could play baseball. And
Bob is sitting here shaking his head, kind of agreeing everything you're saying. By the way, there's a relationship here we found out about right before we went on the air between the two of you.
Yeah, we're first cousins.
Okay.
I can relate to everything he's saying because he said, the first generation going to college, Ricky went to college, and then when he went to college, when I was in high school, I was like, Bobby, you got to do what Ricky does. You're going to college too.
That's interesting.
So that was pretty much, and then he went to graduate school. I was like, Bobby, you need to go to graduate school.
That's
Did you?
interesting.
Yes, I did.
So
excellent.
So now,
and he's my cousin because he calls me Ricky.
right?
I didn't even catch that.
But what's interesting, what Bobby didn't tell you too, because I'm just going to brag on him. He's a professional charro. I mean, he's been riding horseback and
Well, he was talking about that
roper
earlier about that.
his entire career, and he was really and still well known in these parts as an excellent horseman.
So now the college thing is coming up.
So I went to Alvin Community College to go play baseball because my best friend had gone there to play baseball, of course.
Yeah.
And my parents were just, their whole emphasis, you got to go.
Yeah.
And so attended Alvin Community College, played baseball for a year and a half, and then
Were you serious in those first couple of years?
My freshman year, very serious. By my sophomore year, not so much.
Really?
Because I realized that I probably wasn't going to play professional. I was good, and I enjoyed it, but this wasn't going to be my livelihood. And then about that time, you want to go to in those days in 76, 77, you want to go to the discotheques and you don't have any money.
Right.
So you say, well, I better go to work. And so by the end of my sophomore year at Alvin Community College, I went to work for the state of Texas. And
how'd you finance those first couple of years of college?
I got a small scholarship from an organization in Houston called the Rusk Athletic Club. That was an organization of Latino businessmen in Houston that would take applications, and so it was. I got $500, each of the semesters, and at that time that would pretty well that would cover it.
That was junior college.
That would cover it, and so books and everything. Mm-hmm. And actually, I recall the sponsor of the scholarship, Mr. Barbosa, calling me and saying, "Rick, would you like $50 for Christmas money to be able?" And so, it went a long way at the time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, when you were in those early years of college, were you questioning, "What am I doing here?" at all? Or you really started seeing a direction you wanted to go?
I really don't think so much that, other than I wasn't real clear yet. Mm-hmm. I was probably not unlike a lot of 18, 19-year-olds, was more, thinking of the moment, and thinking about, some schoolwork, some baseball, and, partying with my friends. So I think that was probably partying with your friends. That was probably the major focus of the day.
Dating or anything.
Dating and so forth. And so I don't know. I think women are probably a lot more focused on the bigger picture than boys at 18 and 19.
Yeah.
I think the research, supports that there's a very small percentage of guys at 18, 19, 20 years old that know what the heck they want to do.
Yeah. So, you went to work for the state?
I went to work for the state, and I was on a road crew as a building inspector with the state board of insurance. Mm-hmm. And got to live in some really neat communities. Comanche, Texas, up near Gladewater, Texas, working in Texas. And so I got to really get out as a young man and see some beautiful parts and beautiful people of our state.
Great time for us. To Rick. Enough about us. So now,
we got to get him into a.
You're working for the State Department of Insurance, right?
I'm working for the State Board of Insurance as a building inspector and living in these communities around the state. I was out in the field around the state for a year before returning to Houston.
How long ago did you work for the State Department of Insurance?
State Board of Insurance, I worked there from 1979 to like 1989.
Okay. Did you ever know Audrey Selden? Okay, she's the director of it now. But
they had the department that I was in eventually dismantled that function, then went to private companies that were basically underwriters, and so I went at that point. Then I left the State Board of Insurance, cashed in my. Well, I should back up. While I was working full time with the state, finished my undergraduate at the University of Houston on a ROTC scholarship, and was commissioned as second lieutenant, and was in and still am in the Texas Army National Guard. So by 1989, I cash out my retirement with the state and was accepted to graduate school at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. So that takes us up to 1990.
Yeah. So now, are you married at this time?
I am married, 2 sons in Houston. My wife is a Houston City Council member. Interestingly, I was in the year 2004. I was deployed to Afghanistan, and so back up a little bit. In 1998, I was elected to the State House and served there for 10 years. And so in the midst of that, in 2004, I was deployed to Afghanistan, and so You'll remember Frank Court from San Antonio.
Oh, I know Frank Court well.
Well, Frank and I are good friends, and so he and I worked together on a resolution for the Texas Constitution that the voters voted on about what to do in the event that Frank and I were employed. What happens? Now, with Frank, I could tell you where Frank could go, but I'll just tell you what happened with me. But no, Frank's a good friend, and we worked on and that allowed for us that were in reserve status to appoint someone as a temporary replacement while we were overseas, so that your district would continue to have representation.
Oh, okay.
So, of course, I did the most brilliant thing that perhaps I did, in my political career was I appointed my wife. And so she served in my stead, State House, during the 2005 legislative session. And then she had, by that point, retired from HIS, Houston Independent School District, and then kind of caught the bug herself and then ran for city council in Houston, where she's up for re-election this next fall.
So 1990 to 98, what did you do?
1990 to 98, I was... when I returned from graduate school, I worked for Communities and Schools. I went to work for a state senator in Houston, and then was employed by the old Houston Lighting and Power. I was with an energy company working in economic development for 10 years. So I was in the private sector for 10 years. So what did that entail? What that entailed was working with community groups and leaders, looking at ways to attract companies into our footprint as a wires and poles delivery company, like you have CPS here, but looking at ways to attract companies into your system. So creating jobs is what we were about.
So now you were there, and then what came next?
So was there. Then I shared with you about the experience of the deployment, and then in 2008 I decided to run for the United States Senate.
Why?
Because I felt like we needed to change. We needed to change, and looking at the future of our state and of this country, I still believe that we're at a crisis time with our youth, and just a whole lot of arenas are in a crisis situation. And you just look at the issue that I'm dealing with now with children and failure in school, and that whether we're going to be globally competitive or we're going to have people to be able to serve to continue to protect Old Glory, I believe we're at a crisis time.
When you were running for the Senate, what did you learn from that experience? Because we were kind of joking before it went on. No, I mean,
right. What I learned more than anything else,
what were your expectations, and then what's reality?
It's very, very difficult to run in this state. It's a big state. And Ann Richards used to say she didn't realize how big Texas was until she had to run in it. But what I did learn more than anything else is that we live in the most beautiful state, I think. Not obviously because of its physical surroundings, but we've just got beautiful people in the state. Really,
we really are behind the 8 ball. We're 43rd or something like that in spending for education.
Well, a lot of yes, and we and I don't want to say just because spending, therefore, that equates to
you can get more for your money.
Yeah, but what is absolutely true is that we recognize the function of policy, that we have this tremendous wave of failure, and so then that's truly what our public policy is about education. That we accept that as the greatest nation in the world, and if we are going to leave a platform to continue that greatness, we're eating our seed corn right now. And if this was almost any other circumstance, that we were losing generations of children and a family, what would we do as Americans? I think where we've kind of are losing our way is the whole concept of shared sacrifice, the idea of we the people versus me the people, and we're not seeing really the essence of ask not what you can do. We're there. What can you do for me? Or I shouldn't have to care about that 3-year-old kid, because I got mine and my kids are grown, and there is no recognition of the connectivity in those concepts of, as a nation, as a great nation, the concept of shared sacrifice.
How did you get into AVANCE?
I was recruited by a very good friend. This was 20 months ago. Okay. By a very dear friend by the name of Bernard Rappaport in Waco, Texas. Is a very successful insurance businessman, enormous supporter of AVANCE, and has been forever and ever. Original San Antonian that grew up here, educated at the University of Texas, made very successful, and said that, well, we have a moral obligation based on the intervention point that we address as AVANCE to really get this to as many families and children as possible.
So, had you been working with it before, on and off, any as a volunteer or anything?
No, I had the Houston AVANCE in my legislative district in Houston, and was able to witness the success of the curriculum and the program with parents and family, and was a big supporter at that local level, and was aware, based on my legislative career, but had not been involved. Once I got my teeth kicked in the U.S. Senate right, by my friend John Cornyn. I went to work for Neighborhood Centers, which is a very large nonprofit in Houston that running 6 community centers and then a newly formed disaster relief case management program which was the offspring of the victims of Ike and Katrina and Rita, those disasters, and my work in the National Guard is along those same lines. As a colonel in the National Guard, I've been working a joint task force for support of local authorities. So in the event we have any kind of disaster, or someone decides to fly their plane into the IRS building in Austin, Texas, and whatnot, it's our folks, great men and women of the Texas military forces that are deployed to help out.
What do you see Rick doing in the next 5 years, for example?
I'm going to continue.
Still a youngster.
I'm still going to continue in public service. I mean, you asked at the outset, what's the driver? I mean, some of it was those early impressions, but I do believe from my own spiritual drive or belief, our families, about what constitutes either great nations or what constitutes your duty and responsibility about service. And George Bernard Shaw even talked about true happiness, and true happiness is about expending your total breath in the service of others. That's how you really achieve true happiness. And so I'm never going to stop that. And I just feel like I'm in the real fight of my life right now, and helping these families and children through AVANCE.
And what are your children doing?
My oldest son works for a charter school in Houston in the administrative office. He's a graduate of Texas A&M. And my younger son is 14, getting ready to go to high school.
So you got
I do have a gap, getting ready to attend high school this next year, and is really a joy.
That's great.
Well, that's rather phenomenal. I'm wondering about your curiosity or what have you. You're obviously behind education, but politics really gets in the way of education. What about that dichotomy? How do you deal with that? I'm sorry to put such a anchor on you.
I hear you, John. I mean, it's really looking forward, and I don't, I just think that we're not looking forward about making sure that we leave a continued great nation, and we haven't reached our full potential as a nation, but we're not going to see that if we continue to, like in Texas this last go-around, cutting $4 billion from education. We're not going to get there.
Well, at the same time now, you made the comment about your friend John Cornyn. You told us off the air that you are working on a project with Senator
Cornyn has been an incredible supporter of AVANCE, and has been to our headquarters on numerous times, and we're working with him with some other initiatives around the state.
That's great. So
I got to see him up in Washington, D.C. here recently. Guess what? Well, it's okay. All right, it's time to say goodbye for another week on the Documentations and
That was Bobby.
Bobby can take it from Barbara Banker.